Two kids, one blue, one pink, hammers in hand, and undoubtedly adorable. These are the Ice Climbers, Popo and Nana respectively, characters you'd probably recognize from the Super Smash Bros. Series. And nobody talks about these two. Like, yeah, I've seen people use them in tournaments and stuff, but that's not what I'm interested in. I don't even play Smash that much. Where did they come from? Where did they go? Did these two kids just stumble off an ice floe into a Nintendo game? Well, it's a snowy day in the Midwest, and while we were scraping snow off our windshield this morning, my husband randomly asked me,
"Hey babe,
yeah?
why don't we talk about the Ice Climbers?"
Did they mean the kids? The game? The fact that Kid Icarus randomly got a sequel on a 3DS decades later after its first games, and yet these two kids in cartoonishly large parkas only appear when it's a chance to become prize fighters every few years? The question, why don't we talk about Ice Climbers, is interesting, especially as my partner of nearly 6 years refused to clarify further. Welcome to yet another Stuff We Play documentary dive. Let's shovel some snow and climb a mountain. This video is made possible in part by viewers like you via Patreon and YouTube memberships. Join and help support us and make more videos possible for as low as $1 a month. To start, to understand quite literally where the Ice Climbers come from, we have to go back to Japan in 1983. Usually in these types of documentary-esque vids, I like to pour over development documents to get the fullest story possible. But really there's not much out there, which is fair, as there's not really a ton to Ice Climber, the game. And yeah, that's pronounced Ice Climber. Singular. Don't worry, I just referred to this as the Ice Climbers game too. You're not crazy, I promise. In 1983, Nintendo was at the top of their game. Arcade hits such as Donkey Kong had helped the 100-and-some-year-old Japanese playing card company find huge success in the video game realm. And they even had a video game console out on store shelves in Japan. The Famicom. White and red, limited to RF output only, hardwired controllers. You love to see it. Oftentimes we hear about video game companies created scaled-down arcade ports for home consoles, but Nintendo wanted to have Famicom versions of their games be nearly exactly like the arcade. So they developed an arcade system that was basically just a Famicom shoved into a wooden box with some controls and a TV. This was the Nintendo Versus arcade system. First launched in 1984, a lot of the games would either be ports from the Famicom or be created for the Versus system, specifically so they could then be ported to the Famicom at a later point. Case in point, Ice Climber. Produced by Kenji Miki, who would later also produce NES Open Tournament Golf, this was a title made with the arcade in mind. Also, I don't know where else to put this, so it's just going here, but programming here was handled by Kazuki Morita, who would later do programming work on Super Mario Bros. Yeah, that Super Mario Bros. He even considered his work on Ice Climber as a warm-up for that, once saying in an interview,
"The first game that I programmed, Ice Climber, was my warm-up on the NES. Then I dove into the fascinating task of working on the code for Super Mario Bros."
And then followed by saying,
"My humble beginnings in programming go way back before Ice Climber. When I was young, there was no school, at least that I knew of then, where I could study computer programming. So I taught myself everything. In life, you never know what things from your past will turn out to be highly influential as you mature. I was excellent at basic math, but not good at highly conceptual abstract mathematics. That aptitude for concrete math probably guided my hand toward programming, which is all about making real stuff happen."
And as for the final product, well, it's certainly original. In the original 1984 release, both in the home and arcade, they're incredibly similar. The point is very simple. You play as a blue boy or a pink girl as player 1 and player 2 respectively, and specifically, if we're being technical, that's a Nana and that's a Popo.
Nasa people.
Huh. They really sound like something straight out of Nanaland, don't they? Anyways, the goal is simple. You play as these ice climbing kids as you break blocks and vertically scale a mountain. Along the way, you've got to try to beat a time limit and collect vegetables, including eggplants, which became a symbol of sorts for the series, and there's also enemies to dispatch such as polar bears and giant birds, and of course, then famous Topi. And why is this fuzzy little guy so infamous? Well, in most releases, he's a fuzzy little Yeti looking thing. but in the original arcade and later Famicom Disk System release, he's a seal. Which means, you're clubbing a baby seal. He was probably changed to the fact that clubbing baby seals was maybe not seen the best taste. Anyways, there's a catch with Ice Climber. Do you know how Super Mario Bros. Is known for its tight controls, momentum-based jumps, a degree of control even when in the air, that type of stuff? Yeah, Ice Climber doesn't have any of that. It's stiff and janky, and sometimes you'll just phase through platforms you think you're dead on with. Sometimes you'll think you have a jump perfectly lined up, only for the platform you gotta reach be right out of your grasp. And sometimes there's just random ice physics. Yeah, you'd think the Ice Climbers would have some proper winter boots, but apparently not. While some versions of the game contain as few as 24 mountains to scale, some have up to 48. Regardless of the release though, I always found myself clocking out after, at most, 10. Most versions of the game are pretty similar though. There's a proper stage select and animated intro that, as far as I can tell, are only in the arcade and Famicom Disk System releases. Indeed, the Famicom Disk System release is pretty much arcade perfect, save for a loading screen here and there. The regular Famicom, International, NES, and Game Boy Advance releases are all virtually identical, with that same note still applying to releases such as the Wii Virtual Console, which is basically just a port of the NES version. I do think it's cool that the GBA version got released twice, both on a cartridge and as a set of e-reader cards. Oh yeah, remember that thing? Remember when, for a brief moment, we thought loading basic games onto a set of 5 or more cards you have to swipe individually was the future? Anyways, the 2-player co-op mode is preserved here thanks to the power of the GBA link cable. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that before. It's Ice Climber, but 2-player, and it doesn't feel any less jank. Weirdest of all the ports perhaps are the versions available for the PC 8801 and Sharp X1 computers, which were a set of microcomputers released in Japan back in the 80s. Looking at these ports next to the original kind of reminds me of the first time I saw Street Fighter II in the arcade put next to the ZX Spectrum port, though perhaps that's an extreme comparison. What I'm saying is that these are not super great ports of a game that, as far as me, my husband, and every review I've found online seem to agree, was not already super great. Not even Hudson Soft could make this one shine. As far as overall quality goes, perhaps reviewer Damian McFerrin from Nintendo Life put it best in a look he did in 2007.
As with many of the NES games we've seen so far on the Virtual Console, the suitability rests on 2 key factors. If you are a fan of the game back in the day, then you will probably want to play this. If you weren't, then we'd recommend that you try some of the other games out there before buying this.
So let's talk about these characters a bit. Their designs are based on the stereotypical traditional wear of Inuit people, and make of that what you will. As we've established, blue is Popo, pink is Nana. I'm more concerned with their relationship with each other. Are they related? Dating? Clones? I know at first it might seem a little weird to feel so invested in the relationship between a pair of palette swaps, but on the flip side, aren't Mario and Luigi considered iconic? So let's look through some primary sources. What I really love about Nintendo is that a lot of their old game manuals are just archived online officially, for free. That includes the NES release of Ice Climber. There's just something so charming about old game manuals. I mean, just look at this. They even have little blurbs on each of the main enemies. But what's surprising to me is that, though the manual writers cared enough to differentiate the type of clouds you'll see, there is no background info on Nana and Popo. If we turn to Super Smash Bros. Melee then, the climber's first 3D appearance, there are hints that these two are in some sort of romantic relationship. When they high-five in the opening cutscene, a little heart appears, but that could be interpreted as a more general sign of affection than a romantic one perhaps. What I find to be much more interesting is when we look at the event matches. There's one featuring the Ice Climbers that, in the English release, is merely called Icebreaker. But in Japan, the name apparently translates to those who interfere with people's romances. So this must confirm that they're dating, right? Oh, not really. I mean, Nintendo Power issue 152 they are referred to as siblings, though this was later said to be just the result of a mistranslation. So, at this point, I think our best bet is to turn to a developer interview. One of the most coveted parts of Super Smash Bros. Is the Smash Bros. Dojo. This was basically a website that's purpose was to drip feed us information about new releases, satiate the appetites of us hungry fans, even those of us who, for all intents and purposes, should not be allowed near a fighting game. I remember only really being huge into staying up into the early hours of the morning in hopes of a new character reveal when Brawl was in the works. But there was actually such a site for Melee. In Japan, this was called Smabura Ken, a name that literally translates to Smash Bros. Fist. And in a translation of an interview with Smash Bros. Creator Masahiro Sakurai from 2001, he just happened to cover the Ice Climbers. Here's what he had to say, according to a translation from 2015.
Popo and Nana are a childhood friends-like boy and girl pair. The more than friends, but less than lovers kind.
This stance was also later reaffirmed in a few different materials relating to Brawl, so there it is. Do they have a relationship? Well, sort of. They're basically just two kids who are inseparable as childhood friends. If you didn't know any better, you'd say they appear like siblings. I guess that's what we have here. And really, that's precious. So what else is there to say about the Ice Climbers? I mean, they're certainly unique in Smash Bros., seeing as you control both climbers at once, but I really don't feel like I'm good enough at Smash Bros., being the casual player that I am, to actually discuss game mechanics. I do think their stage is really unique though. Icicle Mountain is a little awkward to fight on, but the constant vertical scrolling definitely makes it stand out. It seems like they made a really strong impression in both Melee and Brawl, which makes it really odd to me that they were nowhere to be seen in the 3DS and Wii U releases. Here's what Sakurai had to say about this in a translation of an interview from Famitsu magazine from October 2014.
Even if I cram in as many fighters as I can, there are some people who are focused on the few who didn't make it back. Among them are the Ice Climbers, who were playable during development on the Wii U. However, moving the two as a pair required significant processing power. The 3DS was already being pushed to its limit, and I couldn't get them to work no matter how hard I tried, so I gave up on them. The other fighters had to be whittled and pared down until I could get them to work, so it was simply unavoidable.
So I guess there's that. Though they did return in Ultimate. I mean, you can't say everyone is here without including, well, everyone. But Popo and Nana really don't appear much anywhere else throughout Nintendo's long lineage of games. There's a cameo in WarioWare here, a Mario Maker costume there, a neat background Tetris DS here, an Ice Climbers inspired parka and a few Kirby games there, and that's it. And it's a shame, as though the arcade and NES game are, quite frankly, underwhelming and nothing special, the characters are cute and charming, and maybe a game that has them play a bit more similar to their Smash Bros. Counterparts could be a lot of fun. It worked for Kid Icarus after all, even if Uprising is probably partially responsible for why I have wrist problems in my mid-20s. But is there a chance of that ever happening for the Ice Climbers? I mean, is there? I think the honest answer is unfortunately no. If Waluigi only exists to be pulled out every time a Mario sports game is made, then the Ice Climbers are basically just there to be pulled out every time a new Smash is in the works, so that folks can go, yeah, those two exist. So to end off, I'm going to leave you with a short quote from that same 2014 interview with Masahiro Sakurai.
Characters in series that have no plans for future releases or a low possibility of future releases inevitably will be considered low priority.
And that, everyone, I hope answers the question, why don't we talk about the Ice Climbers? Or something like that. I hope that you watching this right now enjoyed this kind of informal documentary dive, and if that, well damn, I just heard from across my office is anything to go on. Xander, babe, I hope this made you happy. This is everything I could find about the Ice Climbers to answer pretty much every question I had about them. And if you'd like to ask me questions like this to make content out of, then I have a Discord server you can join by supporting me on Patreon or as a YouTube channel member for as low as $1 a month. I'll also let you join these people right here at the end of each video and get some exclusive content and whatnot. So on that note, thank you very much for watching, stay classy, stay warm, and I'll see you next time.